Welcome to Cool Club's headquarters here in Scottsdale. Today we are super lucky to have Matt Bovee, Director of Product Creation for Irons at TaylorMade Golf, and of course, as always, Mark Timms, CEO and Director of Cool Clubs. This first episode, we really want to dive into the new Stealth wood line, Stealth 2.
Sure, let's do it.
This is your time to shine, buddy.
There's a lot to go through. I'll try to do Tomo proud.
Yeah. So, well, let's dive in. So this podcast, really, I want to target for guys who are like really into the tech, and they want to know like why they should buy this driver, what the tech gives them.
Sure. Yeah, let's geek out. Whatever you want to know.
So, obviously, we're carbon again.
Yep.
And second year into carbon, we're thinking, okay, there's going to be some little changes. You're going to dial it up a little more. What are the key features that have changed in the carbon this year?
I mean, when you say what are the key features in the carbon, it's really an open-ended sort of question when you talk about Stealth 2, because of course you have the new carbon face. That was the big deal when we came out with Stealth. We've refined that. We've improved that now in Stealth 2. But in addition, you have a carbon sole in Stealth 2. You have a carbon reinforced composite ring along the back, which creates the address profile. So really, we have more carbon in this driver than we have titanium or any other metal, which is an absolute first for us at TaylorMade, and I believe the industry. What it really boils down to, I know we're going to get into the features and what creates the benefits, but why the golfers, why everyone's going to care and what you're going to see this year is you have a more forgiving driver in Stealth 2, and that's going to be across the board. We have Stealth 2 Plus, we have Stealth 2, which is the core model, and then we have the Stealth 2 HD, which is going to be designed to help minimize those misses to the right that obviously a lot of people struggle with, me being one of them. So yeah, there's a lot to dive into wherever you want to start. The face, the sole, the ring, there's adjustability into really all of them, some more than others. We can go down any wormhole.
So the one that really stands out for me right now, so we got 60 layers of carbon in the face still.
Yep, 60 layers of carbon.
But you still get the inverted cone technology in there.
Yeah, so the inverted cone technology is new for Stealth 2. For anyone who has maybe taken a deep dive into TaylorMade technology, in the past when we had the tie face drivers, it's also in the irons, but this inverted cone technology is where we control the face thickness to allow us to maximize the sweet spot size and make the driver more forgiving. Essentially what you do is, you can make the center of the face, or your balance point where the center of gravity projects onto the face, is going to be your fastest point. By controlling that face thickness, we expand the area that's going to be what we term above like 800 COR. Now we use 810 as a reference because we've gotten so much faster in these carbon faces, and that's what we deem the sweet spot. So the area that now sits above 810, everybody knows that the maximum is allowed by USGA is 830, so that you're really close to the 830 limit. The area that sits above the 810 is now 20% larger in Stealth 2 than it was in Stealth.
That's quite a bit. Yeah,
that's a lot. And when you look at the position on the face, what you see is you actually grow more towards center face and the heel. So you're going to get more consistency. Sorry, I'm getting away from the mic. You're going to get, as a player, you're going to get more consistency, and you're going to see those faster ball speeds for a larger area.
Well, the heel is the toughest part to get any ball speed out of, right? So that's where you have to struggle with.
Exactly.
Distance and direction and everything.
Exactly.
Back there.
Yep. And then players, of course, like you look at the impact dispersion trend line on a driver, and what trend do you see? Low heel to high toe, right? So
across that way.
When we are expanding now, we have it's around center face, and we have some in the toe, and we have some towards the heel side. Like you're really capturing where the majority of golfers are going to impact that club face. So it's a big deal.
So I'm thinking about 60 layers of carbon like a dum-dum, right? I'm just thinking 60 layers, bang, 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 on top of each other.
Yep.
But within that, so are there layers that are greater than 60 in certain areas or under 60 in certain areas?
No, so it's still 60 layers, but where we are, not every layer is built the same or is the same. Doesn't necessarily cover, like, say, the full area of the face. And you have these different plies. The majority of them are unidirectional plies, so that means the fibers all run in one direction, and you change the orientation of the layers to really tailor the strength and flexibility of the face. Some of them are not full sheets. Some of them, we call them like snowflake layers in terms of how they look. And what happens is those build up over those 60 layers, and then you create the variations in thickness. That thickness controls the face flexibility. The face flexibility is what creates both distance and forgiveness.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, now carbon ring.
Sure.
This wasn't in the last driver.
Nope.
So carbon ring is to remove the weight so that you can replace the weight, or for another reason.
The carbon ring. Okay, so the carbon ring, at the end of the day, allows us to remove mass from that address profile, which is higher. When you look at the shape of these drivers, particularly compared to, you go back 4 or 5 years. What happened is part of the way that you get distance out of a driver is you keep that center of gravity projection really low. That's what allows you to have high launch, low spin. And obviously, right, you go through fitting, that's what's going to create the distance. But it's not necessarily good for aerodynamics. You get better aerodynamics when you have that crown sitting up a little bit higher, and you look at our inertia generator on the sole that we started coming out with that geometry and the sim lines, and then what that did is it raised the crown, we get better aero, but that means your center of gravity goes up. When we switched to the aluminum ring in Sim 2, you guys remember that?
Yep,
you had that bright blue ring going around. That was awesome because it removes so much weight from high in the club head. Well, now carbon is actually a lower density than aluminum, so we pull another 2 to 3 grams out of that ring that we can then reposition down into the club head. And then also with that, we have the carbon sole, which allows us to then again take that same mass savings and distribute it differently in the club head. The sole is obviously the lowest point, so that's not necessarily a big center of gravity win, but it allows us to take that mass and distribute it away from the center of gravity, which ups the MOI or the inertia, which is really just like the technical term for forgiveness, the resistance to twist when you, good catch, the resistance to twist when you hit it off center.
Yep.
Yeah.
And have you changed the size of the drivers themselves this year?
Overall, it's still 460 cc's. We're bumping up right to that limit. But the way that the shaping is, they're a little bit different in terms of the crown profile. It's going to appear different, especially the Plus model. It's 2 degrees flatter. If you were to walk into a fitting bay with you guys, and you put it in the standard position. For the Plus model, it's going to sit 2 degrees flatter.
So the Plus is 2 degrees flatter than the standard one.
Yeah, and the standard's the same as the previous year, and then the HD is 2 degrees more upright.
Also has kind of more fade bias to some extent, and better players in general.
Right, and it changed the look when you're standing over the ball as well, and that was directly tour feedback for us, and Tomo took that into account when he's setting up these drivers in the stock position.
Most of them look super upright, for the most part. And part of that style, make the ball draw, but to a good player and stuff, they don't like seeing that toe way up in the air.
And this was really noticeable yesterday. I was lucky enough to go out there with these boys and hit some, and I laid that Stealth Plus down, and I was like, this thing's flat. I like flat. I really enjoy that look, so it's fine to me, but it's a really big visual of how much flatter it is.
Yeah. And is that something new? You have always had the same lie usually in both models, or is that
typically? Typically. Okay. And then, like as you mentioned, when you go more upright, it helps the ball draw more, right? You go more left, and that's why the HD is 2 degrees more upright than the core.
Oh, okay.
But it's important for everybody listening to this podcast when you talk about our FCT technology. So that's the adjustable tip at the end of the shaft that you can unbolt the head, so you can change the lie angle 2 degrees. So, for example, it is positioned in the flatter lie angle when you get the Plus, and you can go 2 degrees upright if you want, and it'll match core, and then core can go flatter, and HD can go flatter should you decide to do that.
So you got some adjustment there as well.
Yep. And that's really, we're a big believer in adjustability and obviously custom fitting, and I know you guys are too. That's why you're here.
Absolutely.
We're
kind of nice to be able to fine tune everything after you're done with the fitting and fine tune stuff.
Absolutely.
That's kind of the way we look at it.
No one's swing is the same, right? You need to fit the club to the swing. Don't change your club to the product.
And I love
change your swing to the product.
You've got the weight back in the Plus. Obviously, I was playing Sim 2, loved it. I just didn't have the adjustability, and I've got that nasty right in me too. So I like putting the slug in the bottom towards the heel and helping me out a little bit. So I like that's back in the driver.
Yeah, the adjustable weight, that gives you that draw or fade bias, which is fantastic. But also what you see in that one is you got that big weight in the back, right? So the Plus model has got 15 grams of weight in the very far back. And I pulled up just a quick exploded view to where everyone can kind of see what we're talking about, because it'll obviously be easier as we're talking through this.
But you got to talk about that a bit and how it's all put together.
Yeah, so you can really see here how I mentioned the 2 weights. So I put this as an image of the Plus. So you got 15 grams in the back, and that's stationary and that's non-adjustable. And then you got 15 grams of sliding weight in the front, and that gives you the draw or fade bias. And in this image here that we're showing, you can really see obviously you have the 60 ply carbon face. You have the carbon crown, you have the carbon reinforced fiber ring there, and then you have the carbon sole panel. The sole panel is 9 plies, the crown 6 plies. There's durability reasons for that. Obviously, you want the crown to be lighter than the sole. You don't get the CG penalty with the sole, all those things. But you can see how that ring really creates the entire address profile of the club. Yep. And being able to do this, and I have another interesting view here I'll pull up for everybody. But if you actually X-ray this head, what you see is the carbon goes translucent, and then you have
That's pretty slick.
Yeah,
so basically, it's a frame in the front holding the face.
Yeah.
Which obviously, the center's carbon fiber, so it's lighter. So you get the most forgiving possible you can by putting the weight around the outside. And then you got the weight in the back.
Yep.
The rest of it's just basically air, so
Exactly.
making it as light as possible.
Exactly. I mean, if anybody thinks back to like a high school science class, right? You probably had a teacher who sat on a stool and he like spun around, and if you put his arms out, he slowed down, and if you pulled his arms in, he spun faster.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. Or like you ever watch like figure skating in the Olympics, as they tuck their arms in and they put them out to slow down. Same idea. You take that mass and you put it as far away from your center of gravity as possible. It's a resistance to twisting.
So when you miss it off center and the club wants to twist and stuff,
Exactly.
that weight being apart slows it down.
And that's how you protect ball speed.
Right.
And that's how you have more consistent. And not only is it straighter, but your distances are going to be more consistent. And you're going to see on the driver, you're going to maximize that distance more often.
Yeah, it's basically two pieces and a bunch of air in the middle, as light as you can in the center section, right?
Yeah.
And that's what that photograph there and blow up really kind of shows it.
Yeah. It's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah,
right?
it is. Yeah. It is. Yeah.
So basically, you're building. I'm just can't compartmentalize that all into one story, and it's you're compartmentalizing. Last year, you're bringing carbon in. It's going further. It's a better material to use than steel. This year, it's more forgiving.
Yeah, exactly. More carbon, more forgiveness. I'm going to put it like in the simplest terms.
Yeah, and the advantage you guys have a little bit to this point is obviously carbon was new last year, so everyone's been messing with titanium faces and titanium bodies for a million years.
Yep.
You're actually starting on a whole new thing, so I can see. You've got room for improvement every year. It's just new technology, so you've got all kinds of things you can play with. So, from year to year, with the carbon face and everything, you've got a little more room to improve. You've got more things to do.
We have a whole new runway to explore.
Right.
In the R&D world or in the engineering world, you call that an S-curve for technology. So typically what you see is when you have a breakthrough material or just a new system to optimize, it starts off kind of slow, and then you learn how to exploit that material. And you see this massive ramp in technology, and then you get to the point where you start to really, you've optimized the material more or less to the best of your abilities, and it starts to kind of flatten out again. And for anybody that lived through the titanium era, you think through that first time a titanium driver came out and what that was like, and then people were like, oh, we can make it bigger and we can cast it thinner, and then your MOIs went up, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, we can do movable weights, we can do all this stuff. And then as you get towards the end with the faces, you're squeaking out like little bits by little bits. You're still always making it better, but it becomes harder and harder. We're at the very beginning of this S-curve for carbon. Like, we said
but
last...
it's not the first start you started. You actually had this kind of technology
it's been in
Japan a little bit.
Yeah,
but once
exactly.
it got to the point where it's actually, rivaling titanium or slightly better, then you started doing with a whole line, and now you still got a lot of potential. So,
yeah, exactly. So this was in development for 20 years before it ever hit the market here in the U.S. to get it to the point where we could... Because titanium...
come overnight. Yeah.
So titanium kept getting better and better and better every year. So the goal line for the carbon face to be worthy of putting in a product, because it had to be better, the goal line kept moving and getting more difficult and more difficult and more difficult. And that's how it took 20 years to create the carbon wood for us. But we've surpassed titanium. It's got better energy transfer. We can talk about how that works if you want. But that means we have a whole new runway to continue down where we're going to continue to exceed past titanium. And that's how you get into, previously, it was a uniform thickness in the face. Right now, it's got the inverted cone technology. We're expanding that sweet spot. And again, it's a little bit lighter. It's 2 grams lighter, even though it's still 60 plies, which means better energy transfer. It means more discretionary mass to put other places. Like, again, we said very clearly last year, this is a new starting line for us, for golf. We're the first company to step across this with the carbon face, and we are off and running, and we couldn't be more excited about in terms of what the future holds, and you give an R&D team like ours a new material to learn.
And, I mean, for understanding stuff, in engineering terms, you start moving 1 or 2 grams to 3 grams. That's a lot when titanium maxed out. Now you've got new technology with a whole bunch more carbon. You've got more weight to move around, and engineers are happy about 2 extra grams to move, and you guys have got
20,
a bit more.
26,
right. Yeah, right.
Well, when we first came out with the carbon face, the titanium face was the equivalent was 43 grams, and we're down to 26 grams, and now we're down to 24 grams in the new Stealth 2. Yeah, every time one of my close friends, I'm going to name drop him because he's an incredible designer on the wood side, Justin Kleinert. He coined the phrase, grams are massive. It's a nice little play on words, but it is. Anytime you give that team You know, some
A
discretion.
couple of grams to
Yeah.
work with.
Oh,
It's something
it's
to play
big.
with.
They're
Yeah.
like, oh, what can we do with that?
2 grams. Yeah, but now
Yeah.
you've got a bunch more to play with. So you've got
Exactly.
a lot more,
Exactly.
a lot more flexibility.
But the lighter face is what creates a better energy transfer.
Right.
So I mean, the physics behind that, we can get into it if you want, but essentially the face is moving at impact. So if that's not mass that would be added into the calculation for the momentum transfer from the club head to the ball,
Right.
because it's moving at the point of impact, it's not stationary. So if you take that mass and you put it in the other areas of the
Where
club,
you can actually use it.
yeah, I mean, beyond the fact that it's more stable because the mass is out and away from the face,
right.
but it's now mass that actually gets added into that momentum equation, and that's
didn't
why you
think
have
about
better
that.
energy transfer.
Awesome. Well, I think that's enough tech. That was pretty good. Let's come back and we'll get into the woods and the hybrids.
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
anytime.
Cheers,
Thanks.
man.